We are official now. We are live, rolling, and to tens and tens of people. My name is Mike Mills, and this is the Texas Real Estate and Finance Podcast. And I'm a local lender here in DFW, and do this usually once or twice a week. Talk to people in different aspects of finance and real estate. Sometimes I get off the beaten path a little bit just because I have my own interest. But this week is very specific to real estate and something that I have a great interest in, and brought a good friend of mine, Joel Verinder, in to talk to me today about short-term rentals, or STRs, as I've learned recently that they're frequently called. I'm not well-versed in all the acronyms all the time, but so when we say STR multiple times, then you'll know that stands for short-term rental. So Joel is he's got several properties that he runs and manages as short-term rentals. Is working on his own podcast where him and his partner discuss this kind of stuff. And it's where I got the idea to bring him in and talk to him, because I watched a couple of their episodes that they did and thought it was very helpful. So I want to learn a little bit about myself, because my wife and I have a couple properties that are short-term rentals that we run. And so I'm looking for tips, and I'm looking to how to fix all my problems. So Joel's here to help me with all that, and we're going to dive into that too. So to start with, Joel, tell me about like what you were doing prior to getting into all this. Because how many years have you actually owned your properties, like the very first one you bought?
Yeah, so we've been in long-term rentals since like maybe 2004.
Okay, so for a little while.
For a while, but only long terms. And then we moved into short terms just in 2020. So
okay, so not too long, just a couple years.
3 years here.
Okay. So, well, that's even better. So you did the long-term rentals previously and had done those for a long time, and then got into the short-term. Or do you still have your long-terms?
Yeah, we still have 3 long-terms here in Dallas-Fort Worth.
All right. Did you have more prior to that and got rid of some and focused on this a little more?
I think at highest we just had 4, I think, and then we converted one.
But okay.
No.
Okay.
We had our plan initially was to get like 1 long-term rental per kiddo.
Okay.
And it was the
college plan.
Right?
Okay. Gotcha.
Instead of we still do 401ks and all that good stuff, but it was just a different way to diversify.
Right.
We were very much rookies and had no clue. And
yes,
but it seemed to be working. But we didn't really have any good plan. It was just, you keep saving, maybe get a bonus and work. And then there's another 1,700 square foot 3-2 long-term rental.
Well, see, the reason I wanted to have you here is because I think if people go online and they're looking for things regarding short-term rentals and long-term rentals and how to invest and all that kind of stuff, more often than not, they're going to come across the quote unquote experts, right? The people that, I've got 35 of them and I've been doing for 50 years and they have all the answers and all the solutions. And it sounds great, but for me, I always prefer to hear from somebody who is, figuring it out as they go, kind of a thing, where it's not, nobody's claiming to know everything there is to know about it. Because I think when you learn about people's mistakes and pitfalls that they have as they go through the process, then you tend to get real world examples of how it actually goes, as opposed to some guy selling you an online course that he's going to charge, you $60 a month to solve all the problems and answer all the questions. So, and I know anytime you start off, whether it be long-term or short-term, there's going to be stuff that you do that you're like, man, I really wish we hadn't done that. I wish we'd have done it this way. And, you kind of learn as you get better. So what kind of pushed you from going from long-term to short-term rentals? Like, what made you make the switch?
So first of all, I think it's pretty awesome you're asking me questions, because when we first got to know you guys was back in 2017 when you were coaching our Lady Wildcats.
That's right. Yes.
Yes. Girls.
Managing my best ability to coach.
And you were the subject matter experts.
Yes. So. Well, I know about the finance part of it, and my my wife knows how to sell real estate and help people buy it. But when it comes to actually how to run these things, because it's one thing to buy and sell, it's a whole other thing to manage it and operate it, which is what you guys are doing. So
no, we we got started, like anything, people have a big change because some big event happens in our life, right? And requires some action, and was kind of fueling it. And so for us, it was, I had lost a job in 2020, and I'm in healthcare IT. Is what I do, is what I've done for 20 something years. And it's just with COVID and hospitals weren't making as much money as they were. They were were busy, but
Yeah.
they were busy with COVID. It doesn't pay the bills.
Yep.
So, I lost my job, and we've got a property out in Cedar Creek Lake as well. And it was kind of sitting there. And at the moment, we're like, well, why don't we just try this, see what it works?
Yeah.
It'll be a little test at the lake. And, we're about an hour and a half away or something. And so we turned it on and we got going.
Yeah.
And I think maybe we had a $10,000 a month in there in June or something like that. And I was opened my eyes. I'm like, wow, this would be awesome if we could do this at a place that actually had like an industry for short-term rentals. Because it's tough at the lake, right? Because they've got a lot of cleaners and maintenance guys, but they don't really understand what it means to leave something like ready for a guest, Right.
Yes. It's not like a hotel. It's just, they're just coming in to clean a house or doing whatever.
Our cleaners just want to show up on Tuesdays. I'm like, no. I need you on, could be like Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Right. That's a lot of money. They're like, no, just Tuesdays. Like, it doesn't really work. So that's where we got started. We kind of proved it out. It was painful, I think, at start, just because we had no clue. And we were doing it all ourselves remotely. So we're driving out there because sometimes we got a cleaner that would show up on a Tuesday and sometimes not. So we were cleaning it, and not fun, but you don't have a job. You do what you have to do.
Yeah. You make it work.
And so it proved out. And so that was in summer of 2020. At that time, we had a long-term rental that we had just kind of restored, I guess, after a tenant. And so we were going to sell it. And so we sold it, and we transitioned that long-term rental into our first short-term.
Okay.
In July of 2020. So we kind of did this little test, I guess, at the lake, and it worked. And then opened my eyes to figure out, well, where could we do this on scale? I don't want to say at scale at that point, but it was just where can we do this that has an industry that can support it. And we knew that at that time, we weren't looking forward to staying in Texas, as all of our long-term rentals are in Texas. Property taxes were killing us.
Yes.
And we were on my list was looking at the states that have low property taxes and no state income.
Is there like two of those?
There goes Tennessee. Tennessee was right on top of the list. And then digging into it a little bit further, they've got.
So wait, Tennessee has no property taxes and no state income tax?
Well, they have property taxes, but it's just low. Like, for an example, like on a comparable $300,000 home, your property taxes were like $600 or something like that. Right?
Wow. Okay.
Whereas in Mansfield, where I'm at, we on a home that we don't have a homestead exemption on, we might be at like 6,000 or 65. Right. So it's
significant,
big difference.
Yeah.
That got us going and got us thinking out of state. And, then we started looking, started digging into some real estate resources out there with bigger pockets, some of these larger forums.
So you went online and found just different places that were talking about where to buy them and that kind of thing.
And started to get some ideas. And we've never been to the Great Smoky Mountains or National Park up there, and I discovered it was 14 million visitors go a year.
Wow!
And it's the largest national park in the country. Which number 3 is Grand Canyon. Number 2 I think it's Yellowstone or Yosemite out there.
Yeah.
Which was amazing to me that it had so much traffic, and mainly because it's drivable. It's just a central in the middle of the country, and you have a radius of draw all kinds of folks that just hop in a car.
Well, it's crazy when it comes to short-term rentals. I think when people think about it, they're thinking the beach, they're thinking, lakes or, vacation type spots, which you don't think, because if you don't live in those regions of the country and you go there on a regular basis, like somebody from Texas maybe wouldn't consider, unless they looked at the Smoky Mountains as being a destination that people would go to, and this would be an opportunity there for it. But that's just because you don't live in that area. And I think there's probably there are some gaps or whatever you want to call it, where there are places that have a lot of frequent visitors that aren't as saturated as trying to buy something at a beach or a lake or something like that, right?
Yeah, no, don't get me wrong. There are a lot of rentals out in Smoky Mountains, right? I'm not the only one.
Sure. Yeah, you're not by yourself.
It is a huge market. And I think that's a lot of what drove us out there or attracted us, was that there's an industry there. I mean, there are cleaners that only exist for these things.
You had the infrastructure for
there's
it.
Maintenance that the only reason why these maintenance companies exist is because of all these cabins and homes that rent.
Right.
mean, they get 14 million visitors a year in a national park, and they don't have the hotels, right, to support all those visitors. And so these short-term rentals have just been key to their local economy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We get taxed, we contribute, and there's a whole industry around it. So I think it made it a little bit safer play for us, knowing that it was accepted. It's been around for 30 something years, nothing new. But there is a lot of competition, out there as well.
So do you have to manage, because in those areas when you have a lot of competition, do you, like, I guess you have to pay a lot of attention to what you're charging, what the rates are, kind of the amenities within the house, and what you have, what you need to offer? I mean, is this the kind of stuff you spend a lot of time researching, basically?
When we first started in 2020, we had just, it was the perfect timing to start. People had just started traveling again.
Yep.
COVID had just been, I don't want to say lifted, but it never really went away in Tennessee. Tennessee was a very, I don't know.
Like us. They were
Texas,
pretty open. Yeah.
Pretty open.
Yeah. There wasn't a whole lot of restrictions based on stuff. And people weren't exactly clamoring to go to hotels for all the reasons related to COVID. So a house that you were going to be isolated with your family by yourself was always a very more attractive offer. Yeah.
Yeah. So we hit I think record, the area started hitting like record high revenues, starting somewhere around like, I don't know, July of 2020, October 2020, all the way till I'd say, end of 21,
right,
where everybody's just driving, and you're right, you can stay in your own place. And so we hit that boom. And I guess the good thing about that boom is, if you had a place, you made money. It didn't matter. Like it had doors, it had a roof. It looked like
they needed space, so they were coming. Yeah,
you were going to get rented.
Yeah.
So you wanted to definitely stand out, and you had to, at that point it was just make sure you didn't price too low.
Right.
Right. But it's changed. It's evolved a bit. It's getting, a little bit tougher. And so now it requires you to look at things like value and make sure, how do you make your places stand out? How are you different than the guy next door?
Right.
What's your pricing strategy?
Right.
That type of thing.
When you were switching from long-term to short-term, what were some of the things that you looked at between, like, okay, I've got long-term rentals and I enjoy this part of it. This is good, but it's also got these shortcomings. And then on the short-term side, like, what are the pros and cons of each one of those that kind of draw you, obviously you're going to gravitate to something. I mean, at the end of the day, it's about money. How much are you going to, what's your revenue? How much are you going to profit off of them? But, in just the managing day-to-day, holding those type of assets, what are some things that you kind of weighed the difference between the two?
Yeah. I mean, the obvious answer is short-term rentals, you're getting cash flow, right?
Right.
Cash flow is the big driver for it. It does take more work, but you're getting compensated for it.
Right. So you have a higher, because you have people that can come in for a week, for a weekend, and you can charge a greater premium, you're getting more revenue from those on a monthly basis if you run it correctly. I mean, obviously, if you're in a place where it's not getting rented, that's a whole other thing. But
so I mean, I've got a great example on that. So we do have a Mansfield home. You're aware, your wife helped us decorate it.
Yeah,
it's awesome. And we ran that as a long-term rental for a couple of years prior. And an example on that, we could get $2,000 a month, for example. It's like a 1,600 square foot home.
Right.
It's updated, but it's pretty run of the mill.
Yeah.
So, based off 12 months, you're looking at $24,000 as far as a gross. We've had that for about 10 months live. We've converted it over to a short-term rental. So we have a good apples to apples, right?
Yeah.
Comparison on the same property, just doing it a different method. And we plan, it looks like we're on track for somewhere around 50 to 55
really
on a gross. And so there are some extra expenses you have to take for, now you're paying electricity, now you're paying water, you're paying internet, TV, things like that.
You got all the utilities because the person staying in the long-term rental is going to pay that typically.
Sure. So
now and you have the cleaning bills.
You're paying that now, right? And so, those things take up about an average around $500 a month.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's still very profitable.
Yeah.
To do the difference.
Did you, okay, so that's a good thing or a good transition. So you got this house is in Mansfield. It's not at a lake. It's not at a beach. It's not at a destination point. I mean, look, if you want to come to Mansfield to go on vacation, like more power to you, but typically that's not what's happening. So, and I know it's hard, or maybe you do know why people are coming and renting it out, but do you know what type of people are renting out that place?
That is $1 million question.
Okay.
You know, when we started this thing, I think that was our question. Was like, who's our target? Like, who stays? Like, I can tell you exactly like a target market in the Smokies. I can tell you that 70% of our folks that rent from us, it's the spouse, the female spouse in the relationship is booking with us, and so I know directly to market to her. Right. Like, I know how to market my property and frame it for a family vacation. Right. Yeah, this Mansfield property is a little bit different. We get all types. We get folks that are, hey, I'm about to buy a house. I need a place to stay for 2 weeks because I've got a 2-week gap. I had a flood in my house. Insurance needs a place to put me. I don't want to go to a hotel for a month. It's, hey, we have a volleyball tournament, or we have a softball tournament
at these places or whatever.
Right, at the areas we have around town. Even like, hey, my daughter's about to have a baby and we need to be in town for a month to kind of help them. We don't want to stay at their house. We don't want to stay at a hotel. So it's
a wild bag
over the map.
And I've even heard, I had somebody on last week or before that, we were talking about travel nurses, how that's such a big industry these days, because a lot of, and you might know, being in the healthcare world, you know, a lot of healthcare professionals are kind of, I guess the word is not, I guess they're staffed out. Like they're not employees of the hospital. They're not employees of the clinic. Often they're working for a staffing company or something like that. Now, for the nurse's point of view, they get paid a lot more money, typically speaking, but they're in contracts. They have to go to places. They have to move around the country. Do you see some of that coming through too?
You know, I don't think we've seen any traveling nurses yet. Now there are some platforms out there like that you can, you know, post your listing to, to try to attract
to
those,
market to it
specifically, but we haven't gone after the nurse
because you haven't needed to. It's been pretty full.
I think we've been, I don't want to say full. I think we've been at like since we've been live, somewhere around 50% occupancy.
Right. That's good.
It's completely fine. Right. Like, and, you know, I think a lot of this where we got started is that we kind of, from the long-term rentals, got tired of it's going to sound backwards, but the person who's in there for 2 to 3 years, and then they just feel like it's their property, but it's not their property, right? They're leasing it from us. And then, so they, you know, when they leave, it's a chore to get it ready. And then we might spend, you know, $2,000 or $3,000 to turn it.
Well, I think what you're saying is like the long-term rental people, they treat it as their house, but it's like you said, it's not their house. But then that's not necessarily a good thing, because when you say, hey, somebody treats it as their own, you think but it's not, because, you know, they don't keep up with things. They kind of let things fall apart, because even though they live there, they're there. They still know it's not there. So if there's a hole in the wall, you know, if the sink's not working right, whatever. So they just let things kind of fall apart. And then by the time they leave, and especially when they know that their lease is up in 6 months and they're about to leave, then they're certainly not taking care of anything. Whereas the short-term rental person is more like a hotel guest. You know, they're there to live there for a little bit, but they don't really want to go in there and wreck everything and, you know, mess it all up. And I would imagine, because the short-term rates are a little higher, that, you know, the income level of the folks staying in those properties tend to be on a little bit higher scale too, right?
Well, I don't know about that, but I do know that we have eyes on the property. Like our average length of stay is like 3.5 days. So we have people on the property twice a week.
All over. Yeah. So you see stuff come up all the time.
Whatever.
All right.
So if it is something, it's very minimal. It's nominal. And the house is ready to go. Perfect for next guest. You know, so it's, it was at least like something like a mental burden that we took off our shoulders, you know?
Right. Cause you at least have an update on a regular basis as to what's happening at your place. Yeah. And that's good, because then at least you know if stuff's breaking down. You're not you know, taking it in the shorts on that, because you can fix it quickly before it gets really bad.
So kind of going back to your question, you were like, what are some pros and cons on short-term versus long-term? I mean, cash flow, we talked about, knowing that the house is always in prime condition, I think for us mentally is a good thing. I mean, I'm trying to transition away from working, you know, and just trying to pick up contract jobs. So cash flow is the most important driver for me. And then there's also a lot of additional tax benefits that you can get into. I'm not a CPA, so
Sure.
your CPA, but when you're doing a short-term rental versus long-term rental with, accelerated depreciation, potentially the ability to offset your taxable income if you manage it yourself.
Right.
And hey, if your person that's in your house, if they're just giving you fits, the good news is they're gone in 3 days.
Right.
And you'll have somebody new next.
Your pain is short-lived.
Yes.
You don't have to experience it for 2 years or however long the lease is or whatever. I would also imagine too, if you have a renter that say has I don't know what the typical these days is, a year or two lease, 6 months, whatever. If the market changes and your property can now go for a higher rent, you have to wait until that lease is expired before you can adjust your costs or your price. So, but with a short-term rental, you can change it whenever you want, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And when y'all were doing your podcast last time, I heard you talk a little bit about, I don't know if it was like surge pricing or just where you were adjusting based on the time of year, and you kind of had some strategies that you used to price your properties a little bit more effectively during those periods. And I think you even mentioned that you had like a software that did it for you.
Yeah. So there are a lot of tools out there that make this all possible. Right.
Okay.
I mean, we live in Texas. We have 7 properties now in Tennessee that we manage ourselves, but it's only possible because of the amazing people that we have on the ground. Right.
Right.
So our cleaners, we just have a super tight relationship with, and we have a couple of maintenance people that specialize in different things.
How often do you go there, by the way, just out of curiosity?
I target like 3 times a year.
Okay.
I'm actually headed up next week just to spend kind of a maintenance kind of refresher week.
Yeah.
Just
walk through each one of them, make sure
everything is in the kitchen's how it's supposed to be, or your wine bottle opener walks away, that type of thing. Just get everything where it should be as we get ready for the new year. I forgot where I was going with that.
I was just asking you about like when you were saying how you have different tools that you use.
Right.
Yeah.
So, so besides our people on the ground, we use like a property management tool. It pulls all of our calendars together. So we list on Airbnb and VRBO, and we have a direct booking site.
Okay.
So it brings all that together, automates all of our messaging.
Okay.
So if you were to book with us, you'll get an immediate message with some instructions, and it'll even like we have it scheduled to check in on you after like the second day of the stay to see how you're doing, see how the stay, how can we make it better,
right?
Type of thing.
Just give them an opportunity if they have something to say to let you know, as opposed to the end and trash you or whatever.
They're very personalized messages. They're not like a robot. Like
right.
I think most people think it's us that are sending all these messages out.
Yeah.
And then we also have dynamic pricing software that we subscribe to that we plug all our properties in. It's smart enough to know that, hey, what are your competitors listing their house at? What's demand like for the market for this weekend? And for an example, we just went through Christmas in the Smokies, and the week between Christmas and New Year's it's like the Super Bowl week in the Smokies. There are somewhere around, my guess, some between like 14,000 cabins in the Smokies. It is so many.
Wow.
And during that week, it gets like 99.9%
booked.
Yeah. So it's very important that you
price it correctly,
or else you'll be that guy who gets booked 12 months in advance, right? You have that booking.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
200 a night or something.
Right.
So it's very important. Like, so the dynamic pricing software knows that, and it escalates the pricing for you.
So would you say
those types of weeks?
Are those 2 different softwares, your pricing one and then your kind of your management piece?
Yep.
If you don't mind, like what, generally speaking, like roughly about, what did it cost you versus how you see the benefit of what it's actually, you can even put in percentages on, what it's saved you or added to the bottom line for you to have those tools.
There are people that have a lot of time and that like to manually like do all the research to understand when the festivals are coming in town,
right?
And the car shows and all these things, and they like to be in control and move them up and down.
Sure.
That's not me.
Right.
I'm still very involved, but I'm not going to study all the events.
Yeah.
But still, it's a flat rate on this particular software that we use, and I think it's roughly, I don't know, I have to look at it again, somewhere around $16 a month or something. So it's like one booking that you mess up on, you just paid for like 6 months of the software. Right?
Yeah, no doubt.
And just an example, and I'm not exaggerating, or just tell you what it's really like. So like for that 1 week between Christmas and New Year's, like we bought a couple properties and they had already booked it out like a year in advance that week, right? When you buy a new property, especially like through Airbnb, you can't just transfer them to you, the bookings.
Okay.
They have to cancel, and then you can give them an opportunity to rebook if they want, right?
Gotcha. Okay.
Well, the other person cancels, the person who's selling the home, right? And so, he would cancel these bookings at $200 a night, and I'm like, sorry, like I'd love to have you, but
not at 200 a night.
but it's 700 a night,
Yeah.
right? Like,
yeah.
And it books, right?
Yes.
Not with that person, because they're going to go find a sticker shock, obviously.
Sure. Well, yeah. I mean, to go from 200 to 700, they're not going to be real keen on. But
right.
I mean, you're going to have 10 people lined up the next day.
But it goes, right.
Yeah.
So it's that these dynamic software pricing softwares, they just really help out.
Well, yeah. I mean, that to me, that's the probably one of the most important pieces of what you're doing, because it's not with the long-term rentals. You check a market rate on what the market's going for in that area. You get somewhere close to that, you get a renter, and then you just kind of, that's it. You don't have to think about it
once a year.
Yeah. You don't have to think about it. But with this is something that to get to maximize your benefits of that property, to price it differently based on the season, and make sure that, and I even think that I saw that, or I listened to you guys and you were saying that, for like your Christmas one that you said, the Super Bowl, you may not even open up that booking until 2 or 3 months or whatever it was prior to, because all those other places get booked up, and then the last minute people are like, we got to go. Well, now their price point's even higher. Now there's always risk involved, I'm sure, because sometimes you may not get it and then you miss out, who knows, but having some type of a tool like that, a software that can guide you down that path. And I'm sure as you've used it, you've probably gotten better at it and recognized some trends yourself, and maybe even made some adjustments. But if you have something that's kind of like hey, here's the roadmap for you, and this is how you do it, you can always change stuff as you go. But to have that, it's basically like having someone that's got 20 years experience doing it, telling you, hey, this is how you want to price it during these times based on this region.
Yeah, it's definitely not a set it and forget it, but you're right. It gives you the roadmap.
Yeah.
And you're correct. We do block, all of our properties between like Christmas and the end of the new year. So like if you were to look at any of our properties for 2023, they're all blocked.
Looks like it's full
for that week.
Yeah.
Just 2 weeks actually.
Right.
And and so they'll probably remain that way until, I don't know, after Thanksgiving or early December.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't want to get inquiries on them, because it'll book. It's what it is.
Yeah. So. You're not worried about it booking up because the trends indicate that it will, and that it's going to, and that was one thing where it was like an aha thing for me when I was listening to you guys, because, our 2 properties are both on lakes, and spring break obviously is a big, that's a big time of year. So it's like, if your spring break is booked up 12 months in advance at just, whatever the normal rate is at that time, you're not going to maximize your space for your dollar. And so if we held out and didn't open it up until, February or whatever, like 2 or 3 months, I don't know what the time horizon would be for that, something like that. But it seems like you get a 20 to 30% bump, if not more in some cases, on what you could charge for that space during that time. And I don't think that people getting into the short-term rental space, these are the types of things that you just don't think about, you don't realize until you're doing it for a little bit. I think it's stuff that just gets, because you're so worried about, getting the property, getting it set up, making sure you have all the amenities that you need, which is a whole other thing. All the tools that are within the property that are required, blenders and pots and pans and forks and, whatever, that you just lose sight of. Wait a minute, this is a business that I'm running, and I need to pay attention to my revenue.
And you know what? I think the thing that I've learned over the years now, it's you have to be flexible.
Right.
And so one strategy that works in COVID isn't the same strategy that's necessarily going to work the next year. Right. And so you have to kind of constantly be checking yourself and looking at it. And so what I mean by that is, like, when we first started up, everybody was traveling, they wanted to get out and they wanted to go, like I mentioned, demand was through the roof. They had the highest revenue ever. And so it was just keep raising your rates. And I'm open next weekend, I better raise my rates. Right? I mean, it's totally, it's like the airlines, how they seem to raise their rates that you're going to get a flight. Right.
That's right.
So now that, our economy is maybe going a little bit different direction, interest rates are higher, folks are I'm not saying they're hesitant to travel, but it's a little bit different. Maybe they're flying now. Maybe
they're watching their pennies a little bit more because of the uncertainty in the market. That's what we experience dealing with
something different.
Yeah, with buyers all the time.
And so now you have to be really looking at like your seasonal calendars. And so a lot of these this pricing software we use is they have a opportunity in there for a seasonal calendar. And so you can go and say, hey, from January like 5th to the end of February, I want the minimum price to be this, and I want my average price to be this, for example. And it just needs to be a 2-night minimum stay, right? But for, like say spring break, it's going to be a different minimum price. It's going to be a different minimum stay.
Right.
So you can kind of adjust that ahead of time. So once you've been through it a little bit, where you can book.
Right.
And so, the summer, like, and the Smokies, our top 4 months are June, July, October, and December.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that those months that's where you're going to get most of your revenue. And so you can, using like these seasonal calendars, you can price it and put those kind of stakes in the sand,
right,
to make sure that you don't accidentally lower the wrong month, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely. And I would imagine it probably helps you budget for your year a lot better too, because once you can kind of build that pricing expectation, I mean, obviously you're going to get what you're going to get, but after a few years, I'm sure you develop some level of, we know, like you said just a minute ago, there's certain times like COVID when all that was going on, there was a little higher demand. Now there's probably a little lower demand, but once you get, a couple of years under your belt with this stuff, you start to develop a little bit of a flow on what you can expect. And then you can budget based off that, what your expectation on occupancy is based on the time of year and all that kind of stuff. And that kind of sets your ability to know what kind of revenue to expect from those places and what you can actually profit off.
Sure.
Right. Yeah. So it gives you a little bit better data. If you had, like, let's say your best friend came to you tomorrow and said, hey, Joel, I really want to go get my first short-term rental. I want to get into this.
It's happened. Okay? It's a true story.
Yes.
Okay.
So how would you tell them to go about doing that? Like what would be the first things that you would say, okay, but before you do this, you need to do this. Before you do this, you need to do this.
Yeah. I think it's this is such a popular topic. I mean, as you mentioned, you can find these
everywhere
stories on like every day, like instant millionaires everywhere on TikTok, and just, hey, here's all the deposits I had for this week, or blah blah.
Yes,
blah.
Everybody's flexing.
Right. Here's my bank statement. I love those. That's my favorites.
Yes.
When they start showing screenshots of bank statements.
Right.
Like,
right.
What are you doing? But just like any business, it's super important that you are financially ready to. I mean, this is a business, right?
Yes.
These are homes. There's real mortgages, right?
Yes.
Like, these are costs that you are going to have to
incur,
right? And it's work, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's passive income, I guess, towards according to the IRS, but it's active, in my opinion.
Still pretty active. You're still doing a lot of stuff, especially if you're running it yourself.
But it takes reserves. It takes money that you're setting aside for capital expenses. It takes maintenance that you're setting aside, right? And so for me, I think it's just really important that you just don't, like any investment, you don't just put all your eggs like right in, and you have nothing left, you don't have a plan.
Would you say it's better to start, if you're going to buy something that's close to you so you can run it a little better? Or, because there's the pros and cons, right? Yeah. If you live in Texas, right? And so you could buy a property on a lake, or you could buy a proven market like the Smokies, right? Where maybe you have a little bit better track record, but it's so far away. So is it better to try to find something where you're close to so you can deal with whatever you got to deal with? Or
everybody's got their own why. Like, you got to figure out what's your why.
Okay.
Why are you doing this?
Right.
For me, it was I'm improving my cash flow.
Okay.
I want to be less reliant on hospital providers that don't have budgets
for
me. Right.
Yes.
I've been in IT for 20 years. I'm not the cheapest guy. Right.
Yeah.
And so that's my why, is to increase cash flow. So for me, that answer is, where can I go to get the most cash flow? Right. And it may take a little bit more work. It may make me more uncomfortable if the property is 14 hours away.
Right.
But that's what I do. Right. Others, their why might be, hey, I want to go find a place that I can vacation to and it'll pay for itself.
That's what we did. That was
right?
why we
like,
did
that's
it.
why we're doing it. Like,
Yep.
it's not, cash flow might be nice if we get it, but that's not the main driver.
Right.
And so it kind of depends on what's your why, and you got to figure that out, I think. And
so that's probably step one.
Make it,
Make
it work for you.
What are you trying to do? Do you want to have a vacation home that you can use and make some money off, or really just pay for itself is probably the best expectation on that? Or are you trying to get some money coming in on a monthly basis to offset, maybe be able to stop working or whatever? When you guys bought your place, let's say the first one in Tennessee, were you able to buy it as like a second home, or did you buy it as an investment? Like, because I know when I do loans for these, for example.
Wait, you do loans?
I do loans. I don't know if you knew that. But whenever I do these, if somebody's buying a property, the way it works for mortgages, which I'm sure you know, but for anybody that doesn't, is if you're buying a house in a vacation spot. So if you were buying a house in the Smokies, or you were buying a lake property or a beach property or somewhere near Disney World or whatever, then I can do it as a second home. If I do it as a second home, then it only requires 10% down as opposed to 20. But if you do it as an investment, then I have to put down 20%. So there's a true benefit. If you were buying another house in Mansfield that you were trying to call a second home, I couldn't do that because there's no way for an underwriter to go, how is this a second home if you live in the same city? You're buying this as an investment.
But I like the vacation in that.
Right. Yeah, it's a hard thing to convince somebody of. But so when you guys bought those in the Smokies, were y'all able to do them as second homes, or did you do them as investments, or did you pay cash for some of them? How'd you do?
Like I said, we didn't know a whole lot when we were getting into this, right?
Yeah.
So when we bought our first, we used a national lender, right? That didn't know anything about. It was just the same national lender we'd used for primary forever,
right?
And we just did a normal investment.
Okay, 20%
down
Gotcha.
Loan. And then after I got into it and I started like connecting with other investors in the area, I'm like, oh my gosh, like why didn't I do a 10% down second home loan?
Yeah.
And so on our second property, actually, our second property, we ended up doing a different type of lender, a hard money lender.
Okay. Yep.
And then, but somehow on our third property in the Smokies, we were approved for a second home loan, which I look back
with the other
now,
two,
and I was like, how was that possible? How did that ever get past an underwriter?
Yeah,
because we already had two investment properties in that market.
Oh.
But whatever, it happened.
Yeah,
and we're happy. And so, no, we have a second home loan there, just one. And then we have a second home loan in Gulf Shores, Alabama.
Yes.
Property out there as well. It's a different market.
That's right. You can do it. Yeah. I mean, you could buy
market.
7 second homes if you wanted to, as long as they were in different parts.
That's definitely an incentive about looking at a different market, being able to
better terms,
explore, a normal convention, a Fannie Freddie loan, at a 10% down versus, it's gotten a little bit less attractive, just with some changes over the years, I think.
Well, what's happened, what's kind of a bummer, and this really just happened. I mean, this was probably during COVID, like after 2020. So within the past 2 years is what Fannie and Freddie did was they put on a higher tiered pricing on second homes, and they basically classified them the same as investments as far as rates and pricing were concerned. Because prior to 2020, if you bought a second home, you would get a primary home rate. So your interest rate would be just like you were buying a house you were going to live in. Now it's more like an investment rate. You still get the 10% option, that's just a cash benefit, obviously. But when it comes to the actual terms of the rate and your payment and all that kind of stuff, you're going to be more subject to the investment side of things. So that's kind of, and
well, the other downer is, I guess, on the second home loan is that, on an investment loan, you can use a portion of that projected income
correct
to go towards your debt to income ratio.
Yes. But this is the part where they're going to have to figure out what to do with underwriting, because if it's a long-term rental, the way it works is if you buy a long-term rental that you're going to use as an investment, I can take the lease that you have from somebody coming in, and I can use that rent to offset. It doesn't give you income, but it offsets the debt. And I can it's a vacancy factor. So I can take up to 75% of the rent, basically. It's hard to do that with short terms because there's no way that they've come up with yet to project and say, okay, well, this is what the rent is going to be. But I mean, it still falls into the thing where you could get it as a long-term and then turn it into, there's a lot of ways to pull that off, but you are correct. I can use income from rent to offset the debt, so you can have more purchasing power when you do as an investment versus doing as a second home, where I can't do that.
Yeah. So in our experience, I think on five of our properties that we purchased in the Smokies, when we get an appraisal up there, our appraiser will have a value in there of what it would rent for
the short term.
For a short term.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's probably because in Tennessee, because like you said, the infrastructure is already there, that it's such a big business there that there probably was a high demand for it. Because we do the same thing with long-term rentals. We get a rent schedule, essentially is what it is, from the appraiser, and that tells us what the rent, because that way, because we get to use the lease. But if someone says my lease is for $5,000 and you're like, you're not going to rent this place for more than $2,000, well, then obviously we're going to take the lower.
It's very conservative and it's not always accurate.
Correct.
But in some instances, actually, we've been able to use like air DNA reports for that property.
Oh, wow.
Some lenders have.
Okay.
And I've done that.
Yeah.
And they take, just like what you're saying, they take 75%.
Yes.
Not a full 100.
Yeah. It's just been a challenge. The short-term rental industry has been a challenge because it's trying to figure out how they are going to measure those numbers, especially in areas where, if you're buying a short-term rental in Mansfield, it's going to be hard to get comps to know what your kind of rates you're getting for that. If you're buying it in the Smokies, well, then it's easy because you've got, like you said, 14,000 other cabins that are being done
every day.
Yeah, that are being done the same way. So it's easier to kind of come up with those numbers. But it does give you a little bit more flexibility in your financing of it, just depending on how you structure that stuff. When you guys first started looking for, how did you come, just out of curiosity, how did you actually come to doing it in the Smokies? Like, where did you come across that and go, oh, this is where we should, especially because you've never been there before?
Yeah. It was really, like I'd mentioned earlier, it was looking for states that don't have a state income tax.
Okay.
And
so that's where you started with it.
That's where we started. And then I also started looking at property tax, and they had checked the box there.
Yeah.
And then with Great Smoky National Park with the 14 million visitors, that was the other piece. So when I'm looking at markets now, I really try to look for at least two drivers. Like, why are people going to go, like, from a vacation market?
Two different reasons.
Yeah, let's leave Mansfield out. But when we talk vacation markets, like, you need two things that are really going to attract them to the area, right?
Okay.
And so for the Pigeon Forge Gatlinburg area, it's the national park. That's an obvious one. But Pigeon Forge and Gatlinburg are pretty they're very different in themselves. They've got very different personalities as cities. They are about 20 minutes away from each other.
Okay.
But it's like I call it the Vegas for families. It's,
right.
Just go-kart tracks, and they've got like a Titanic museum that's got like $50 million worth of artifacts that they dug out of the ocean.
Okay.
That you can see. I mean, Dolly Parton obviously is huge up there.
Yeah. Is that where Dolly World is?
It's Dollywood. Yeah.
Or is it Dollywood? Is that what it's called? Yeah.
She's obviously been big, and just recently, I mean, she just hosted a New Year's Eve, recently, and has been pushing. She had a big musical, I think, a big network recently. So she's been big in the news, but she's invested huge into Pigeon Forge. There's a lot of dinner shows.
So there's reasons for people to go there outside of the park.
Massive family attraction.
Gotcha.
But if you're not into the tourist trap thing, which it is a lot, right?
Sure.
You can go all of these hikes in the mountains and
go
to waterfalls. It's very scenic. Lots of bears, lots of things to see. So it kind of has a little bit of both. You can so that's what we look for. We look for places that have multiple draws, so that, like, if something were to come around, like with a COVID, and let's just say Pigeon Forge was shut down, right? Well, they can still go to National Park, right? There's still something that draws tons of visitors, right?
Gotcha.
So it's you're not just held to one thing. Like when COVID came through, Florida had a ban, right, on all short-term rentals. Like the state banned all short-term rentals for, I don't remember exactly a length of time, but about at least a month.
Really?
Where it said hotels can take travelers, but Airbnb and VRBO cannot exist right now.
Why?
The governor, he's really,
DeSantis
he was really popular. Yeah. And so
that seems like an odd thing for him to do, though. I mean, because you're basically shutting down the individual investor?
It was an odd choice.
Yeah.
We were happy we didn't have any Florida
I mean, I
properties
guess
at
it
the
was just
time.
for a short amount of time, so he obviously changed his mind or reversed that. But that's an odd stance. I didn't know that.
You know, and the beaches obviously are super popular for short-term rentals
Yeah,
for good reason.
Absolutely.
And we have one there
because you have so much stuff. Like, you just need a lot of places to put your stuff.
Your beach, right?
Yeah.
That's your driver.
Yeah.
Now they might have music festivals or baseball tournaments or
Right.
other things that you know drive traffic to your unit. But,
Yeah.
it's just something to look at. We have kind of look for places that have multiple draws.
Okay. When you since you started having these properties and marketing them, and obviously I know, like you said, in Tennessee with the Smokies, it doesn't take a ton of, you know, rocket science to market it. But what are you doing aside from the basic stuff? I mean, you have your listings, but what are you doing to try to promote the properties themselves? Are you doing anything extras, or is there other things that you're trying to work on that are actually trying to drive? Because I mean, I don't know the structure of it, but if you say you get a booking through VRBO, okay, or Verbo is what they're calling themselves now. Is that right? I saw that on a commercial the other day. I was like,
still old school.
Okay. Yeah. So I would imagine that they have a certain price that they take, or, you know, a certain cut of it that they take because they're booking through their site. Same thing with, what's the other one? Airbnb.
Yeah.
So what about, you have your own site that people can book through, which I'm sure you get 100% of it versus, you know, whatever percentage to the other ones. So the idea would be I drive more people to my site if I can, because I get a greater, you know, revenue, but you have more eyeballs in the other two because they have more traffic coming through them. So are you doing anything marketing wise, you know, through social media or through, you know, websites or whatever to try to drive people to your site to book through there?
Yeah, we've I'd say that we have a direct booking site, redglidergetaways.com. And if you're a traveler, when you go to Airbnb and you make any booking at any short-term rental, there is a fee that they call, I don't know, it's basically their booking fee, but it ranges anywhere between 10 to 20%. The Airbnb is a service fee.
Okay.
That's how they make money.
Right.
That they charge that to the vacationer.
Oh, not to you. It gets charged to the vacationer.
This part gets charged to the vacationer.
Okay.
About 10 to 20% of the stay as a booking fee or a
Okay.
service fee.
Okay.
And then there's also Airbnb charges 3% to the host for the fee.
Okay.
So they get both sides.
Both sides.
Yeah.
Good racket.
Yeah. And so the way that and VRBO
and they own nothing.
Yeah. VRBO charges a little bit less, you know, for the vacationer. It's a little bit cheaper usually for the vacationer. They charge the host a little bit more than the 3%.
Okay.
So I think I charge 8% to the host. So, so yeah, it behooves you to try to find a direct booking site, even if it's the exact same rate. If you're booking through Airbnb, you could save 10 to 20%.
Yeah.
Just because you don't have to pay a service fee.
Right.
Right. Same thing with VRBO. It's a little bit less, but you're saving that service fee.
Right.
For me, it's a wash. It's like, I'm not necessarily going to have more revenue if they're all direct bookings, because I still have to pay a 3% credit card processing fee.
Okay.
Right. To process your payment.
Gotcha.
So, but what it does help me, I mean, you know, there's some smart people out there, and, you know, you don't want to build your business on somebody else's platform.
Right.
Because
if that platform falls apart, then you're toast.
Something happens. Like, it's crazy stories out there. You can YouTube this stuff, and it's like, hey, somebody, vacationer left, they brought a handgun, and they left a handgun and a drawer and a dresser.
Yeah.
And the cleaner didn't see it, right? Because they didn't open all the drawers up. The next guests show up and their kid opens it, you know, finds a gun or something. It's awful, right?
Yeah, these are the stories that all my wife's always heard. She's like, "This is gonna happen." Like, this happened one time.
Yeah, it doesn't. But
but all it takes is once. Yeah.
What happens is, like, a lot of times, you know, we've got 9 properties on Airbnb, and if that were to happen, is an opportunity where Airbnb could suspend all 9 listings because it's my account, right? It's suspend my whole account, not just that property. So my point is that whatever I can do to be less dependent on these platforms, the better, right?
Yep.
And so I want to drive people to our direct booking site, just so I'm less reliant on others.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I'll even take a little bit less money, right? But it just kind of helps grow it. It just diversifies a little bit.
Right.
So yeah, we do have a direct booking site. A lot of our marketing is focused on people who stay with us, and so.
So the people that have come and stayed with you, you're going to market directly to them because if they've been there, they're familiar with it, and then they're more likely to come back anyway.
Yeah, we try to, you know, build advocates for the brand, and you know, we, you know, ask that, hey, if you'd like discounts on future stays, shoot us over your email for example. And then, we do some email campaigns a couple of times a year,
Yep.
with discounts for bookings, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
We try to have some signage. And
do you do that through your management software, or you just do that on your own separately?
Collect the emails.
Well, like your whatever emails you're sending out.
We use like MailChimp.
Okay, gotcha.
To send out, create a campaign, that type of thing. It's pretty manual,
right?
It's like any CRM, I guess. But,
sure.
So yeah, we do that. There's some other technologies out there that I'm starting to look into that are a little bit sexier, like with StayFi, for example.
Okay.
It's a Wi-Fi solution you can put on your home network. And basically, if you come to our unit and you want to use our internet, then it says, hey,
put your
Mike,
email
give us your email,
right.
and you can have internet.
Yeah.
And that way you're not just getting the person who books, you're getting anybody in your unit that
hotels do that all the time.
That connects, right?
Yeah. Go to Hilton and see what they ask for. It's the same stuff.
Now you have their contact information, and
that's genius.
If they don't want to be a part of it, they can always unsubscribe.
Sure.
But we're looking at that as another opportunity to get it. And I guess lastly, in all of our listings on the platforms like the Airbnb or VRBO, we have some verbiage on the top of our listing that basically says, like, if the name of our cabin is Whiskey Ridge, it'll say Whiskey Ridge by Red Glider Getaways.
Gotcha.
At the title of the listing, and so we probably have, I don't know, 2 or 3 people a month that are smart enough to copy and paste that little phrase and put it in Google, and then our direct booking page will be the first
thing that pops up
finding, right?
Okay, yeah.
And then they can compare prices and then they'll book there, right?
It gives them an incentive to book there because they can get a cheaper rate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, than going through VRBO or whatever. Yeah. Do any of those platforms, not that I don't even know how they would know this, but do you ever feel like that you get, punished for charging less for your property than it would be listed on? Like, does VRBO ever have a service that goes out and says, okay, yeah, we're listing your price or your place for $500 a night, but you've got it listed yourself for $480? You're undercutting us.
No, you just have to. I mean, there's the terms of service are very. You don't want to mess up, right?
Right.
You don't want your account suspended because
right.
hundreds of thousands of dollars going away, right?
Right.
So you have to be, very careful. You're following the rules, and you're staying in line, kind of what they say to do. Like if somebody messaged me through Airbnb and says, "Hey, I'd love to direct with your direct booking site. Do you have one?"
Yeah.
I'm not going to respond and say yes, and here's a link, right?
Yes. No.
That's not going to be it, right?
Yeah.
I might respond.
You shoot yourself in the foot.
Try Google or something like that, right?
Right.
But I'm not going to
send them right to it.
Right.
Yes.
I'm going to be safe.
Right.
It's not worth it.
Right.
So.
Do you find that in dealing with like the VRBOs and the Airbnbs that the insurance and stuff that they cover for you for the guests that come in, if there are any issues, like what is the insurance situation like for you? Have you had any incidents? Like what has your experience been with that on guests causing some sort of damage to the property, and then what you're responsible for versus what you had to pay out, or if that stuff covered? Have you had any of those incidents yet?
Yeah, man, I know as soon as I say this, it's going to be like, it's going to happen. But, so just some context, right?
Okay.
Like, so over the last 12 months, we've hosted somewhere around 1,700 nights, right?
Okay.
400, I looked at it this morning, 486 reservations, something like that.
Wow.
It's a lot of volume.
That's awesome.
Right?
Yeah.
And I say that just to say that we have yet to have some sort of catastrophic event.
That's great.
With a guest,
right?
Stuff happens.
Yes.
I get it.
Yes.
But in my opinion, it's like you should be budgeting for stuff to happen.
Sure.
Right. And so I put away a certain amount every month to my maintenance or to a CapEx category. We have reserves, right? Like I see it as a business expense. And it's kind of a polarizing topic when you talk to different hosts. You're in it's like customer service. I know I'm in the right, but they're the guest and they are leaving me the review.
Right.
And here's a great example. Our second guest we ever had, we have no pets, right? At our first cabin. And they showed up with a pet.
Okay.
Right. And how did I know that? It's because I'm staring at my camera, right? That's over the door, and I see them bring in their dog. And I had this my realtor at the time. I texted him like, "Hey, what should I do?" Right. And he's like, "Well, you're watching your cameras, aren't you?" And I'm like, "Yes."
Yes,
he's like, "Stop watching your cameras." Right. Like
you're driving yourself crazy.
Do.
Yes.
you're never going to get anywhere if you're
Right.
staring at this the whole time.
Right.
And I'm like, you're right. And he's like, well, what's going to happen? Let's play this out. You're going to reach out to the guest and you're going to say, hey, I see you brought a dog. You can either charge them a fee or you can ask them to leave, right?
Right. Those are your two choices,
both
right?
of them are bad options.
Right. Both of them are going to make them mad at
They're
you.
going to be upset.
Right.
And then they're going to leave, and they're probably in Airbnb
terrible
world.
review.
If they give you anything less than a 5-star, it hurts your ranking, right?
Yeah.
Like you can get delisted for having like, a sub 4 ranking, right? So they'll give you a 3. Great. We got your $100, right? But now your ranking dropped, right?
Right.
Now you're on page 5 because you don't have very good guest rating, right? So it takes a little bit of a mindset kind of thinking to figure out like what's really worth it to go after. In another platform, I had a guest that broke a window. It wasn't broken when they showed up. It was broken when they left, right? It just cracked. And I charged them. Their deposit was $500, and of course I got a bad review.
Of course.
And so it's one of those things, thinking moments where I'm like, man, what is it?
Short-term versus long-term thinking, basically.
Is it worth it? Right.
Yeah,
and
is it
so
worth
that's
the
kind of where I'm
headache?
going with this is like everybody's got a different answer and it's right for them.
Right.
And I don't mean people should run over you or not treat your property with respect, that type of thing. But you just need to think through those things.
Yeah.
There are some different tools out there that you can use you can require your guests to buy insurance on every stay.
Okay.
I think most of the platforms allow you to put that in there as a requirement if you wanted to.
So don't have a choice.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, it's fairly straightforward to pull that out.
Right.
Airbnb has made some changes recently where it's made it a little bit more friendly for the host to go after some things that guests have, it used to be that if you were to check out on Monday and another guest came in Monday afternoon, you as a host would have to file the claim before the next guest checked in.
Okay, because once they're in there, then they don't know who did what. Or
right.
Whatever. Right.
So your cleaner would come in and they, maybe the cleaner leaves at 3, the next guest arrives at 4. And so you got an hour window where you had to decide, is it worth it? Right.
Wow.
Right. And as soon as you do it, the first step in that process is it goes to the person who just stayed with you before they submit the review, by the way, right? So to pay it, right?
Yeah.
And then if they say no, it goes to Airbnb. Well, how's that going to go?
Yeah,
right?
it's not going to
go
go well.
Airbnb has changed it now where now they give you a 14-day window as a host to claim something under air cover.
Okay.
And the best scenario is that the vacationer goes ahead and they submit their review because they have a 14-day window to submit a review. They submit the review before the window is over, and then you can file it if you want to, right? You're not going to get a repeat guest,
right?
You probably don't want them if you're filing it. Anyway,
if they did something to damage it or whatever. You brought up pets a second ago. So what is these days with the short-term rentals, what are your thoughts on pets? Do you allow them? Do you think it's a good thing or a bad thing? Where have you gone? Where have you guys landed on that?
Yeah, so we have, we've got 9 places and 2 of our places now accept pets. We had one place that was that did amazing last year in revenue. This year we've seen about a 20% drop on this one property, and it doesn't match with my other, like it's all in the same neighborhoods. It's just or the general vicinity.
Okay.
But it's just, I don't know. I can't figure it out. It's got amazing reviews. I'm almost at 100 reviews at like 4.96. Like it's way up there.
Okay.
But it's just struggling to get bookings. And so that was a lever that we pulled end of November. Was all right, well, let's try pets at this place and see
if that helps.
How that fires it up.
Yeah.
I did some research just in that market, and this is a market by market thing.
Sure.
Like how many in that market allow pets, how many don't. And so you could just go like pull up your browser and go to incognito mode and just do a search and just see particular dates. Without pets, it's usually about 10% of the properties, right, that take pets.
Okay.
So it makes you way more marketable,
right?
Just depends if you want to take on that potential extra wear and tear.
Right. Well, and I don't know. I mean, I would think, this is all anecdotal, just my opinion of it. But when it comes to pets, how many people are traveling with a 200-pound dog, right? If you're traveling, aren't you just bringing along your little poodle, your teacup dog, that, I mean, I don't even know people that travel with cats really. I guess sometimes they do, but it's rare. I would think, I mean, I don't know for sure, but I don't know. I think it's, my wife and I were having discussions about that, because we actually built in our Cedar Creek property, we built like a place for pets to be. And then, it says,
that's an amazing like little place under the stairs.
Yeah. But then it says in there, I don't think we allow pets. It's like, how are we having the dog kennel without any pets? But whatever. I mean, I get the, you have the wear and tear. People don't take care. I mean, it's just like anything else. You're going to have an animal.
I will say, because when we had our lake property, and I told you we were doing that as a kind of a pilot when we first got started, we allowed pets because we've got a great fenced-in yard. We have 3 dogs ourselves. But it was so close to Dallas Fort Worth. There's your whole little pet theme.
Yeah, that goes out the window.
Because they're just going to jump
driving
in the
car. Yep.
And come. And so we had a lot of big dogs.
They're bringing the bull mastiff along with them in the back of the Ford.
And so what I will say is that was so close and so easy for people to get to from a major metropolitan area. I think you would see a little bit different at the lake.
Yes.
And the Smokies, I think you were completely right, because our average guest has like a 6 to 7 hour drive.
Right.
So they're not necessarily going to load up some giant dogs in the back of your truck for 6-7 hours.
So again, same thing. It's market to market. It depends on where it is.
So another thing to notice, we've seen, like, if you have like really big homes, like 5-6 bedroom homes, there's really not a big difference there allowing pets, because that's multiple families coming together. And usually multiple families don't want to bring multiple dogs.
Right.
And then you just have dogs
running all over the place.
It's nuts.
Yeah.
So I think it also depends on your property size too, not just your market.
Gotcha. Another thing you said was you said something about cameras. So what is the current position for these different sites on cameras on property, and where can they be located, and what can you actually have out there versus what you're not allowed to?
Yeah, so you're not allowed to have any cameras inside the home that are not disclosed.
Okay.
I think it's best to not ever have any cameras inside any home. It's creepy.
Yeah.
And you're also not allowed to have any, and I guess what are assumed private spaces, right? And so I see that as like, don't have a camera, over the hot tub or something like that. Like,
So even though it's outdoors, it's not inside, but we don't need to, you don't,
right.
I mean, you don't want to watch, like you said, it's creepy. It's
you don't want to
really
know
creepy.
what happens at your property. You don't, you just want it to be clean.
Ignorance is bliss.
And it's great. You don't want to know. It's bad. So no, we have cameras at the front, over the front door of all of our properties.
Okay. Just see who's coming in and going.
See who comes in and goes. And it's more for me to understand if I have work that has to get scheduled, something to get repaired. I want to make sure, I want to see who's coming in when there's no guests, right?
Yeah.
I really don't watch these things when we have guests coming in and out. I don't count people coming in. Like, oh, you said you had 4, but you have 6.
Yes.
I just would drive me crazy.
Yes.
I mean, we average, somewhere around 50 reservations a month. And because, you don't
have time to
my
do
kids
that.
would, they wouldn't exist. It was
you'd just be sitting in a room watching the screen.
Oh, they had 6,
Well, then again, but that goes back to what you were saying earlier about, pick your battles, I guess, is essentially what you were saying about, hey, look, if somebody damages something at your property, you can surely charge them. You can take their deposit. You can do all those things, but at what cost? They're going to give you a bad review. They're going to have something negative say that you don't get a booking again, which you may not want anyway. But same thing, if someone, has somebody else come to the property, and you're like, I saw a 7th person walk in. You're only supposed to have 6. It's like, well, my aunt was coming over to say hi. She lives down the street. Like, so it's like, choose what you want to fight with somebody over.
But we use Ring cameras at all our properties. And I tell you, it is amazing because in one app, you could just scroll. You can see all your properties.
Every single one of them.
If you're on your computer, you can use like a dashboard. It looks like you're at like a mall security camera.
Right.
Like, that's kind of cool. And then we use like for locks, all of our houses have the same lock. It's it's all operated from the same app.
It just streamline everything.
Code, I think.
That's what we have too.
And so basically you can just scan through all your codes and
see who's coming and going.
Yeah. You can add codes or you can turn them off so, I mean, there's a lot of systems like that, I think, that make it a lot easier to automate. We we use Honeywell thermostats at all of them.
Okay.
They're all Wi-Fi thermostats. It's all in the same app. Same
So you can change
thing.
and adjust anything.
So just
you
on
need
one
to.
screen, I can scroll and just make sure that when somebody checked out, they didn't like put the heat at like 80 or something.
Right.
I can just adjust it.
Just double check it there. Another cool thing that I've seen at your properties is in maybe it's not at all of them, but you seem to have an affinity for it, is the video games, the arcade style stand-up video games, which I love. Like, we're similar age, and so we kind of grew up to some degree in that era. So it's awesome. But, now, like if we go on a trip, if we go to, the beach or wherever, he's always bringing his PlayStation. Like it travels with us. It's like another member of the family. But even for the old guys that come in there and you see like the race car game or, the old school Galaga. And I know now these days you can get the arcade looking game, but it's got like 20 or 30 different games in it you can play. So was that something that you just liked and want to put in there? Did you find something that said, hey, look, if you have stuff like this, maybe not necessarily that, but other things in the house for people to do other than come, sleep, leave, eat, whatever, just to have a few other amenities there?
Yeah. So, man, amenities, that's a whole different topic, and I'll try to keep it.
No.
But starting in the Smokies, there are a lot of cabins out there, obviously, like you mentioned.
Yep.
And so the bar, like just the starting point in the Smokies and like what you have in your place is kind of stupid. Like if you go to the Smokies and you don't have a hot tub, you're gonna die.
Yes.
Like, some people will say, hey, mine's doing great. Well, they probably have something different. They have an amazing view or something like that. Right. But you have to have a hot tub, right? Yeah. It's almost like a given. You have some sort of arcade in the Smokies.
Okay.
So pretty much any of those places will have an arcade, air hockey, a pool table,
some sort of game
shots,
option,
something.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And so I think, I definitely did not taking any credit for that, but we just, you
saw what was there and
outfitted, and that's what everybody else had. And, and you had to at least do that. Right.
Yeah.
So we took that, and when we went to other markets, like we went to Gulf Shores, we realized, I call it like we wanted to smokify like the Gulf Shores listing. Right.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to like take some of these amenities that traditionally Gulf Shores doesn't have, like, there's not places over there that have arcade games.
Because they have the beach, and you're there for the beach.
Right. So you have an arcade game. It's like, wow, it has an arcade game.
Yeah.
Right. Like, so it's things like that. We have one at Mansfield House that you've seen.
Yeah.
That it's like, we have, it's,
you never know what you want to stick out in somebody's mind, right? Because the idea, I think with anything, when you have a business, you have to get customers, right? You have to go out and find customers to bring in. But then the goal is it's way less expensive to keep your customers than it is to go get new ones. So if you have somebody come to your property and book your property, you want them to walk away going, man, that place was awesome for whatever reasons that they have. They had the jacuzzi and they had the games and they had the, the fire pit and whatever. Like, it was great. You want them to remember that, because then if they're going somewhere, odds are it's easy to go back because you know what to expect and you're taking a family trip. That's why people, the reason Broken Bow has turned into what it is, it's not necessarily because Broken Bow's awesome per se. I mean, it is now, but it wasn't that way originally. But it was a place that you could live in Dallas Fort Worth or other areas and you could go to, and you were kind of out in the woods and whatever. But it was your expectation was always the same. Like, we're going to take this trip. If I'm going to the beach, most people I would think don't go to 100 different beaches. They find one place that's close, that's near where they are, that they can pack up all their stuff and drive or quick flight or whatever. And they go and they stay there and they like it. And then they come home and then they got to go back there the next year because that's their family trip. Yeah. So how easy is it just to go, well, we stayed at that place before. It was awesome. Let's go back there, and you know what to expect. There's no surprises.
I totally get you. And that's the way my brain thinks. It is so weird, though.
Doesn't work that way.
We have, I'll pride ourselves on like trying to be great in customer service.
Yeah.
Like, I do a lot of things I think that are maybe a little bit different than a normal host. Like, if you book with us, you'll probably get a personal, like, a little video of me saying, thank you so much for booking with us. I'll
That's
text
awesome.
it to you. Right.
Yeah.
And so we do these things, and it's turned into great reviews. I think our average around all platforms around like 4.96 or something.
Yeah.
For 3 years. And but we've never had a repeat guest.
Really?
Isn't that weird?
Not once?
Not once.
And you can track it, obviously, because you know
Thousands of
everybody.
stays. Yeah.
Not one person has come back.
I don't want to say thousands. That's not right. We've probably 8,000 stays.
Do you think that has anything to do maybe with the market, because it is the Smokies and there are so many, Airbnbs?
When I think about
STRs?
it, like we as a family vacation to the same market. We'd like to go skiing.
Yeah.
And so in February, we're going to go to Copper Mountain.
Yeah.
And we've been there before and we had a great experience.
But you're going somewhere different.
We don't want to stay at the same place. We
Okay.
kind of want to check it out. Something different.
Okay. I can see that too. Yeah.
But we just wanted to there's other awesome places too. Like a different building or like a different.
So really, I guess the amenities could be looked as not necessarily that you're trying to get people back, because you may or you may not, but that you're ultimately trying to get good reviews, because that's what a new person coming in is going to look for.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I want repeat people.
Of course.
We market to
but
them.
you're just saying it doesn't really happen so far,
it
at least.
hasn't happened yet. I haven't had a lot of traction on it.
Yeah.
But it's definitely something we're going after. The other piece of that in the Smokies, one of the first place the second home that we got in December 2020 had a kind of a starting of a theater room, and which I think I actually have that. You have a picture of it?
I do. Yeah. Hang on. Let me put it up here.
Kind of show the.
So here's your logo, by the way, for anybody wondering, the Red Glider Getaways. Yeah. Where did Red Glider come from?
We have a red glider at each one of our properties.
Okay.
On a porch or a patio.
Nice.
Some of them are metal, some of them are poly.
All right. And then, so this was,
there you go. That's a good one. So that is a cabin that we bought. That actually is one we bought in April of last year. And they have this huge basement space down there that they just had some bunks in.
Okay.
This is just half of the basement. There's on the other side of the wall on the left, there's another big room. And so what we decided to do was turn this into a big theater.
Yeah.
And so this is the same room. And all we did is built a platform in the back, carpeted the platform, bought some theater chairs, took all that junk out. And then what's, I guess, behind the photo or the camera in this one is just,
too. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on.
Oh, that's the other side of the room. Right there. It's just, 120-inch screen with a projector.
Yeah.
And this room is this is our cover picture of our listing.
Okay.
And oh my gosh, like the response on the theater room,
really,
is amazing. The thing is, when people go vacation, they want something different than what they don't have at home.
Right.
And so to your point, like I've had this discussion with some other owners, and we're like, hey, have you ever thought about putting Xboxes or PlayStations in your place? Right. That's way cheaper than an arcade. Right. And it's way more practical. Right. They can just like bring their own games or something like that. And I'm not opposed to that, but
it's just the same thing.
But I think the big thing that people are attracted to is stuff they don't have at home. This is new. This is like
you're on vacation. You would do something different.
Who has 120? I mean, there are people that have theaters,
sure.
But a very small percentage of the population have a 120-inch theater with stadium seating and surround sound in their house, right?
So you took the approach on this one because it had a bed. Because like when we were doing ours, we were like, well, how many beds can we fit? How many people can we fit? Right. But you actually took a bedroom out to say, hey, look, I'm going to minimize the amount of people I can allow in here, but I'm going to add an extra amenity to it because, like, I don't know. I would have no idea if I looked at our places, because I don't manage it, if the average are 4 or 5 or 10, like, I don't know. We can sleep, I think, like 17 or 18 in the whole place.
Wow, really?
Yeah. Huh. But we may only have 6 that show up on average. So
for this one, there is this basement is a mirror image on itself on the left and the right.
Okay. So there's 2 sides.
Same size space on the other side of the wall.
Okay.
The same exact space. And so all that we did was we moved the bunks from this side of the space to the other side.
So you kept the bedding.
We rearranged it and made it smarter. They had like a bar in there, and we took it out.
Right.
So we didn't get it away. No. I don't know if we have to leave it in there. It's still a sleep 7 cabin.
Okay.
I think it's a twin over queen.
Gotcha.
Bunk and then 2 kings in there. But yeah, so this other slide you were showing there, this is so that cabin I just showed you did amazing. Okay. Like the theater was super well received.
Right.
I didn't build it myself. I hired my local contractor. And so I found another cabin that was
similar layout,
undervalued. So they were using the same space. They just put some sofas there, like you see in a picture, and a TV on a wall, like just a little 50-inch or something.
Right.
I'm like, what is that for? What are they going to? They have another living room upstairs, with another 50-inch
just to go
TV
sit in another space. Yeah,
it's just a sitting space, right? But it only sleeps like 7 anyways.
Right.
And so on that one, we did the same thing.
Yep.
You got the risers, you got theater chairs,
carpeting in there.
It's a little bit different flooring.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing. So, and that actually, my secret sauce, I'm actively in that neighborhood, I would hit refresh, show me another cabin that has the same.
Yeah.
Because it's actually interesting because in Tennessee, this is what they consider the basement.
Okay.
But if you look out the windows, you can see the windows.
Trees up there. Yeah, it's not that low of a basement.
It's like you're sort of a view.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's because they're on a mountainside and it kind of slopes down.
Right.
So it's below grade. And so it's a 3-level cabin. And so they actually don't count this area in the square footage of the home because it's below grade, like on your appraisal or whatever.
Okay, yeah.
Even though it's air conditioned, but whatever reason,
right?
That's what they do. So when you have homes, I guess where I'm going, I'm trying to talk about value, trying to find homes maybe that others aren't looking at,
right?
And so I'm looking at a home that, hey, on paper it only shows it's 1,700 square feet, but I know there's an extra 900 square feet down there in the basement that's not being counted for, right? And so I also know that a cabin like that, can have a $30,000 revenue difference just by converting. It sounds ridiculous to say that, but just taking like what we showed and putting a theater in like that, it could be $30,000 a year difference in revenue
because you just get more bookings because it sets itself
apart. You have
apart.
a higher price,
right?
You have more occupancy,
and
that conversion itself with theater equipment and everything, it's like a $20,000 project, right? So it's not. Hey, 1 year you
pay for yourself.
What other investment does that?
Where did you find when you say it has a 30% increase? Is this just stuff that you were researching and looking up, or did you just kind of come to that?
No, it's because that's what we just discovered. So the first one we just
once you did it, then you realized. Gotcha.
And then we bought another cabin, repeated the process.
Yeah.
And then another one of our cabins, we enclosed the space over a dining area. It was a big lofty. Dining area went like 40 feet in the air.
Yeah.
And we enclosed it up there, made it a theater room. And I think this year we've seen a 25% increase on that.
Wow, really?
Revenue.
So you're the theater room master now, because
it's yes, like,
all these places that I'm gonna have to actually add that to my list. We got the one in Whitney has a lot of space, a lot of rooms.
It's pretty eye opening. Like I didn't think that. The big amenity in the Smokies is indoor pools. Okay. So like if you have an indoor pool, you were going to get booked first.
Yeah.
You were going to get the highest rates.
Right.
We have 2 cabins with an indoor pool. But I mean, other like the next in line, it's probably views. Like some place that has like 10-mile views, or you're just see like amazing views. That's next, I say.
Yeah.
And then in my opinion, like fire pits, like amazing fire pits and theaters are kind of like the next up.
Right.
And you kind of have to just make do with what you got and figure out how do you rework your space or find deals that have value, right? And so another, like one of these cabins you just showed, when we purchased it, I was looking out the top deck and I'm like, man, if we just had some trees removed, you have a pretty amazing view. Yeah. And so I was talking to the homeowner that we were buying it from, and I'm like, have you ever thought about cutting these trees down, or why not? And he's like, wow, it was going to cost like $2,000 to cut trees down. In my brain, I'm like, $2,000? Like what? How it would take nothing.
I can get way more bookings off the $2,000 that's going to cost me to cut those trees down.
So we hired a guy like right after we closed, and he just the way that these lots are, I mean, they're really slanted lots.
Yeah,
you didn't have to take them out; he just laid them down.
Yeah,
and yeah, I mean it.
And it opened it wide open.
Our number one amenity people coming on is the theater, but the number 2 is like, man, it's got an amazing view. You can just sit in a hot tub and just
look out over everything.
See like 5-6 miles. So
Do you think it's important from your own personal experience, if you were going to pick a place to buy a short-term rental and start using it, would you recommend somebody like, go there? If you're going to buy something in the Smokies, well, then go stay in one at the Smokies and get the experience, and that'll give you a better perspective on what you're looking for.
That's probably the smart thing to do.
Yeah.
I didn't do that.
No. Well, hey, look, a lot of things are hindsight 2020.
I'm a numbers guy. Like, yes. I am probably way more faith in numbers than I probably should have. But I am try to remove emotion and like, is it numbers? Does it make sense? Does the deal make sense on paper?
Yeah.
Yes. And I look at the properties before, obviously before we purchase them.
Sure. But,
yeah. But it's strictly numbers for me.
Yeah.
In an example, I did find another floor plan. It's on the market right now. That's the exact same as these other two. And with the way that the market's going and the rates and everything, it's been sitting out there. It's been on the market for 6 months.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, that's so weird. What's wrong with this place? Yeah, it's got neglected, needs some maintenance, whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is going to be great. Like, I could probably offer them way under.
Yeah.
Maybe get them to pay some of my points or whatever, lower my interest rate. Let's do it. So we were up there over Christmas. And of course, what do you do on your vacation? You look at homes. That's what I do anyways. And so it looked at it, but the roads going up to this thing were awful.
Yeah.
Like,
so getting there was a huge pain in the butt.
Like there's I didn't want to do it. Like,
for that reason.
And so,
but you were going to do that. You were going to see that because you were going to go there to buy it anyway. So you were going to experience that property.
But I'm just saying that's just one part of the equation.
Yeah.
Is understanding like how your people are going to access your vacationers going to access it. Is it easy? How's the parking? But
what are the numbers that do you have? Did you build out a spreadsheet for yourself to say, okay, well, this is what my mortgage is going to be. Here's what I expect the occupancy to be. Here's what the average, nightly stays are up here. Okay. Yeah. Does this work? Does it not? Did you build something out like that?
Yeah, we've got it. If you're looking to get into short-term rentals, I would say even before you even have your dollars and cents saved up, just start analyzing deals. So we have a kind of a deal analyzer spreadsheet. Happy to share it with anybody. Put it in the comments or something.
Yeah.
Get me your info and I'll send it. But it basically just breaks down like how much do you think you can make? What's your mortgage? It's in like electricity and water and internet, all this good stuff.
Right.
HOA gives you like what's your cash on cash return? Like how much cash you need to put into the deal? How much do you net every year, going forward? How long does it take you to get your money back? These types of things. And so, I think I got the basis of the spreadsheet from somebody and I kind of morphed it into my own.
Yeah. Give you your own pieces to everyone.
It's go through deals and just, cause usually not this market, but you need to be able to act right whenever you see something.
Right.
And so if you're confident in your numbers and you're going through deals and you're analyzing it, when you're ready to go, if you've been doing this and you'll run the numbers, you'll be like, yep, that one's for me. Right. Yep. Like it hits my boxes. You know what you're looking for. Your realtor will like you a lot more. You
have to go see 20 different spots.
Because and that's another thing, right? When you go look at these short-term rentals, it's not like your traditional, unless you go like in January, February, where maybe it's off season.
Yeah.
You can't get in a house.
Oh yeah. No, we're because
there's guests in there. Right. And so if you're like, hey, we got to go house hunting, like
you can't show it. Yeah.
Like, you can drive and look at the outside. I'm like, oh, that's great. But I can't go in.
No, because there's somebody there.
Unless you got lucky and it's
you just hit it on the right time. Yeah.
So it's different. It requires that different level of just being ready and being prepped.
Well, I think that there's an opportunity, and I know that there's, I don't know what all's happened, but I know that there's some laws that are changing in different cities, do different things, what they'll allow for different short-term rentals and how many in and it's market by market. So it always changes. You hear stuff, especially in Dallas all the time around the stadium where they don't want to have people doing that kind of stuff there. And you see that, but I do think even with all that, with interest rates being higher and, probably going to stay here for a little bit, and the housing market slowing down, it creates opportunity. It creates a lot of opportunity for investors to come in. And if it's in the right area to set up, these type of short-term rentals or long-term rentals. And so you'll see, and this is what we tell a lot of our buyers these days, like, look, right now, if you're willing to buy, because there's not a lot of people willing and able to buy, you're going to get a pretty good deal. And it's not always the price. Like you said, sometimes it's the seller's going to pay all your closing costs. They're going to help you buy points to get your rate down, to make it more manageable, to get your mortgage in a place where you can get a better return on your cash. So it's something that if you have the means to be able to do it, which, that's a whole other thing. But if you do, then there are opportunities and there are deals to be had right now. Whereas, if we get, say, 12 months down the road and rates get back into the 4s or, even low 5s or whatever, and you have people hopping back on the train of purchasing homes, well, those deals dry up. And now, yeah, your rate's lower, but now you're having to pay $20,000, $30,000 or $40,000 over list price in order to get the house, which is what we were going through, 24 months ago. So I do think that right now there are opportunities to find good deals out there. And I think that if you look for them and you, like you said, get your numbers together and know what you want and know why you're buying these properties, I think there are things to be found and had. So we're coming up on an hour and a half, so we've been going for a while. It goes by fast, but is there anything else before we roll out that you want to leave us with, or anything that we didn't touch on?
Yeah, I guess if you guys are interested in short-term rentals, I'm always happy to talk to people, give some advice, to some degree anyways. You can find us at redglidergetaways.com. I've got a phone number, email on there.
We'll put that in the comments and the different posts.
You can find me there. But happy to talk a bit. If you are, I am an Airbnb ambassador. So if you are new,
do you have a shirt or a badge?
No, I know, right? A cape. If you are looking to do your first short-term rental, I do have a link that I can send you that'll give you a little bit of a discount. Nice. As you do your first listing, that type of thing. And it'll allow me to do the ambassador and Airbnb. There is a kick in it for me. Airbnb reimburse me a little bit for helping you, that type of thing. But it's free to you. Just a free service. But that's we're super happy to be here, man. I'm glad that I can help you out for all the pick and roll advice early on for Addison and letting her play, and
I'm really more
all these trophies that we won back Lady Wildcat days, paying it back.
That was a long time ago, but those girls, I loved that stuff. I mean, it was definitely something I really, really enjoyed doing, and I'm sure my red faced yelling from the sidelines is always entertaining to watch as well. So
it's funny, on my phone, you were texting me earlier today, and it came up as Coach Mike
Coach Mike.
Like, oh my God.
I got a lot of those.
Gold.
Well, I appreciate you, man, coming in and hanging out with me for a little bit. Like I said, this was a bit of a personal one too, because I've got two of them, trying to figure out how to manage these the best way I can and looking for ways to kind of maximize our revenue. So I've definitely learned some stuff myself. We'll put all your contact information for your Red Glider Getaways in there so everybody can take a look at that. And then once you get your podcast up and rolling and start publishing episodes, I'll share those out for you too, because I watched the first two you guys did, and you had a lot of great information, stuff that I learned, which is again driver for me to bring you on here, because I really, I was like, man, I need to talk to him. I need to ask this. I need to ask this.
They're pretty raw.
Yeah. Well, hey, look, this is all stuff that we're all learning. We all learn how to do different things. So, but I think as you do it more, you'll get better at it, and I think it's already great. So I don't think you have a lot of room to improve. But I do appreciate you coming in, and once I get my next round of questions put together, after I dive a little deeper on these properties, I'm sure I'll have you back and we'll go through it again. So you can be my short-term rental Yoda. That's the goal, at least. So, all right, brother. Well, I appreciate your time, and we'll see everybody later.
Take care.